5 o'clock on a Friday, and look at this room. Clearly, the interest in India continues to peak and peak and peak over time, and for understandable reasons. For those that don't know me, Rick Rosso, I run the program on India and emerging Asian economics here at CSIS. As we think about this event, recollect what we were back in January. This was the year of monster democratic elections happening all throughout the world, not just in India and the United States, but a lot of other countries. At this point, most of those elections are behind us, including India's own, bringing back the incumbent government that we knew so well, and Finance Minister, of course, maintaining her role, which has been such a primary interlocutor for a lot happening in the United States. But all the elections are not quite over. We're just 10 days away from having our own election here in the United States. Sometimes voters have chosen change and sometimes continuity, and India, we know, the voters chose continuity. I think the relationship between the United States and India, it's going extremely well, but it's never quite been exactly friction-free. But the serious issues that are on the table have been effectively managed, and part of that is because we have a deeper understanding of who our interlocutors are. Even as governments change, there's political buy-in from parties on both sides of the aisle. And just to reiterate a comment I made on that just a few weeks ago when we had another event, the fact that the government of India has been engaging the United States so heavy and so often. Think of the number of cabinet-level meetings that have happened just in the last couple of months with an election staring us in the face, shows that confidence that irrespective of who wins the election, the relationship with India will most certainly be prioritized. And I think that across the United States government and business, when I talk about those interlocutors that have helped to build this relationship, those words are echoed constantly in referencing the Honorable Minister who's on stage here today. Her Excellency Nirmala Sitharaman, Minister of Finance and Minister of Corporate Affairs at the Government of India, elected to the Rajya Sabha in 2019 and has held multiple key portfolios since that time, 2014, and held multiple key portfolios since that time, including Minister of State for Commerce and Industry, Minister of Defense, as well as her current role as Minister of Finance and Corporate Affairs. And she'll be interviewed in a fireside chat with no fire, of course, for safety reasons. So, but my boss, Dr. John Hamre, I'm sure everybody in this room, if you showed up here, knows Dr. Hamre, President and CEO of CSIS since 2000, and holds the Langone Chair in American Leadership. Prior to joining CSIS, he was Deputy Secretary of Defense, the culmination of a long career that really shaped the operations of our national security establishment. So, Dr. Hamre, the floor is over to you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Rick. And thanks to all of you. I said to the minister, I think this was the craziest time to try to have a seminar on a Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock in Washington, D.C. I mean, nobody gonna, and it's packed, and it's because of you. That's why I'm not gonna spend any time on your resume. They're here because they know who you are, and they know the important role that you play. And so we'd like to dive in. We have a limited amount of time. Let me just first begin by asking you, what is you've been here at the World Bank, IMF these days. Let me just ask, what is your sense of the global economy right now, and how do you look at India right now in this global economy?
The largest sense which prevailed in the two-day discussions, both of the fund and also of the World Bank, is there will be a soft landing. The efforts by the fund, the central banks, and all institutions, governments, have kept the inflation down for some meaningful period. And therefore, the soft landing is increasingly a possibility. And then that reasonable growth numbers will come from even the advanced economies, certainly not in the negative area. And then the coordinated action between countries to manage any supply chain shocks that have been the character of the global economy in the last, let us say, at least 2 years, are being faced by countries with a lot more preparedness. And therefore the sense is we can only have better days than what we've seen in the last few years. But with that said, all of us had to sound a note of caution, because economies are not really picking up that much yet. They're all right. You see them not going down further, but there is still moderated world trade picture. Demand in the advanced economies are not really all that attractive. So the global trade doesn't see possibilities of great recovery sooner. As a result, countries which are very dependent on commodity exports or being a part of the global value chain are not seeing great demand pickup. So the picture that is emerging is positive, but it's not going to rapidly change the situation. And every country has borrowed much more than they ideally would do for the sake of recovery from COVID. Whether that borrowing was quality borrowing, in the sense borrowing for quality expenditure, or not, borrowing is on their balance sheet. As a result, looking at getting some kind of a fiscal deficit, some kind of a control over fiscal deficit will be a challenge for most countries. If not a drastic control over it, gradually at least there should be measures to bring the fiscal deficit to some reasonable number. So this is the kind of picture which has emerged, and I quite agree with it, because we are growing fast on the back of our domestic market. We have a challenge also in that we still have quite a few imports coming, but with the commensurate increase in exports not happening because our traditional export geographies are not really picking up, we have a challenge which is more external than internal.
Can I ask, what do you think is holding back the Indian economy? I mean, I go to my buddies in New York, they're enthusiastic about what India can become. What do you think is holding back, and what would you want to fix that would have the most impact?
I'm not sure I'll phrase it like that. Mm-hmm. What is holding India back? Oh no, we are trying to grow at the fastest possible rate. Mm-hmm. But I would counterpose a question, what is holding the investors back? Why do global investors, going by the textbook, where economic activity is good and robust and dynamic, money flows there, is the normal textbook assumption. I want to ask, where are the investable funds, where are the investors, why are they looking at, what are they looking at? Mm-hmm. What's holding them back? So that's a question I like to pose. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Even as I pose that question, I must recognize that India has received quite an appreciable number of FDIs. So that's not to say nothing comes to India. Yes, it is coming. But with that coming, I still would think there's more opportunity lying. And with all the conversation being China plus one, shared values, democracies, English speaking, dividend, demographic dividend, with skill sets of Indian young being so good that they are manning the GCCs of the world located in India and GCCs of the world located outside. So the question would be, what's holding it back? Mm-hmm. So I don't think anything is holding the Indian economy back. The policies are working. Reforms are still happening, and it shall continue to happen. Greater liberalization of the economy will be there. Mm-hmm. And in a way, I think we are accessing newer and newer friends and also speaking more about Indian economy in more avenues, more platforms that will probably be even better attractive for investors. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. You're here for the IMF and World Bank meetings. These are two institutions that were created in the so-called Bretton Woods, from the Bretton Woods Conference. Those were the conferences held by the Allied countries during World War II. The UK was there. I don't know how much they were paying attention to you at the time, but they were there. But those institutions got set at that time, and a structure has kind of stayed that way. Prime Minister Modi has spoken about needing to transform these institutions. Would you share with us your thoughts about that?
Yes, you're right. Prime Minister Modi, even by 2015, was articulating the need for taking up issues with the multilateral development institutions, the need for reforming them, the need for them to be less bureaucracy-driven, more client and subscriber country-driven, being more timely, focusing on their core competencies, and being lot more like banks. You have to be nimble-footed. You have to utilize every rupee, every dollar that is there with you optimally. And you will also have to raise revenues. You can't just run your bank with the subscription given by your member countries. So the clamor for undertaking reforms in the multilateral development banks since 2015 only kept rising, and it was when India took up the G20 presidency that we put it as a part of our agenda. And in order to have experts speak on it, not just Indian opinion, but also the global opinion to be mobilized, we formed an international experts group, and the group worked together with a lot of people and gave a set of recommendations as to how, and I'm happy to say, under the Brazilian presidency after us, the mantra seems to have been bigger, bolder, bigger, better, and bolder was the recommendation, but it seems to have now reformulated itself as bigger, better, and more effective multilateral.
And how about governance?
In the banks?
In the banks.
Of course, that is also one of the big things that all of us are talking about. They need to be a lot more transparent. They need to be a lot more consultative, and stakeholders' involvement will have to be far more visible, like they say in justice. You have to be seen giving justice, in time giving justice, and give true justice. So I would think the multilateral development banks will have to have a lot more consultation and stop possibly, I don't want to sound harsh, but stop lending only from the creditor's point of view, setting the rules of lending based on just the creditor's viewpoint. The debtor today, the countries which are in distress today, have several options. They don't need to be asking you to come and help them. Although they are in distress, they wouldn't mind any number coming in. But if your position is, I'll take care of the creditor's interest, and only then will I start with 10 conditions imposed on you, I'll come in. Many countries say, maybe not my choice, I'll walk out. I'll not be able to wait for you. And also the absence of timely remedy. All this has really made many of the, particularly global south, to go away from this. Bretton Woods at 80 will have a lot of things to introspect. Based on the recommendations, I would think, which has been given by the G20, which was vouched by the New Delhi Declaration by all its leaders, I think governance is a very critical element to the evolution agenda of the World Bank. I know we didn't speak about the IMF in that international experts group recommendation, but even IMF will have to now look at it with all the recommendations as applicable it would be for themselves.
You've asked for a more dynamic bank, a bank that has more of a perspective of the borrower, not just the creditor. Is that why India joined the Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank? Was it to have that kind of a bank that you felt was more attuned to what you feel is needed, or was it meant to be pressure on the IMF and the World Bank?
Oh no, no pressure on anybody. As I said, borrowing countries want options, want choice. Their aspirations are big. They are, after all, coming to meet the aspirations of their people whose numbers are big compared to the numbers in developed countries, one. And two, after all, our aspirations are being met 70 years after our colonial bosses left us. After the colonial imperial rule came to an end, particularly for the emerging markets, respective countries, their respective colonial masters, they left us. They left us in such a situation that many of our activities will have to be started from then. And since after that, every country coming out of colonial rule is struggling to come up and meet up the expectations of their own citizens. Now, it's no good if we keep calling them developing countries, LDCs. They have aspirations bigger than anybody else. And it is our duty, being in politics, representing them in the parliament, it's our duty to see where best we can get resources from to meet that aspiration. So why AIIB? I've gone to NDB. I go to ADB. Every one of us will go to any number of options. That has nothing to do with the World Bank and IMF. We are with them, but we are also everywhere else. We need the resources. We need the regional cooperation. We need new partnerships. It's going to give us more resources. It's going to give us more friends. It's also going to give us a lot more options to the way in which we can deal with our own situations and our compulsions.
Let me shift to just ask you about something I'm told you're personally quite interested in. That is urban centers, municipalities, and how to make them a more dynamic element of India's development and its growth. Would you share that with our audience?
Yes, both politically and economically. The municipalities and the urban centers have been empowered. They have elected representatives coming on to decide on how their priorities should be met. They are being given fund, as would the central government's fund be given to the state governments, so are they given to the urban local bodies and the municipalities directly. That's a part of government's India's constitutional arrangement. The Indian constitutional arrangement through a finance commission which is notified every 5 years. They come about, it consists of domain experts. They have the constitution given authority to decide under what formulation the taxed money or the revenue generated through taxation is to be devolved. And the urban local bodies and the municipalities get a portion of the direct taxes which are collected by the central government, so that they can plan in advance, knowing what comes through the budget for their aspirations and their developmental needs. So money goes to them. Then there is an elected set of people sitting and planning as to how they want to use. Now, over and above this, today, because we are also giving them capacities, manpower is trained to raise resources from the market. Municipalities are issuing bonds. They're also raising money in the stock markets and looking at avenues of private partnership, so that the municipality doesn't wait for the provincial resources or the central government, the federal government's resources. It can do many of its own developmental activity on that municipality or the other municipalities on their own. So yes, municipalities are a very powerful instrument of economic development, and they on their own raise a lot of their resources.
We have a program here at CSIS. It's on food security, and I think it's commonly thought that people that are insecure for food are in the countryside, but it's really, we find they're in urban centers. And food insecurity, water quality it's really a challenge as countries have rapid urbanization. How does this deep infrastructure of modern civil life fit in your thinking, and what are you planning for that?
Well, three different types of answers for it. Food security in India is addressed in two different ways. One, you have a law which was passed much before Prime Minister Modi had come on food, right to food. We honor that. And per that right, every individual is to be given 5 kilograms of rice or wheat, depending on what they predominantly consume, at a certain price. The logistics cost will be borne by the center and the state government. The end consumer pays whatever, a small amount, but it may be big for that person. 3 rupees if it is rice and 2 rupees if it's wheat per kilo, and take 5 kilos for every individual who's listed in his card. So they get that food grain per that Right to Food Act. But because COVID set in, and we were very concerned because food may not be available for people, Prime Minister Modi announced that he will give that Right to Food Act provisions totally freely. So nobody had to pay any money. They could still get the 5 kgs per person grain that they chose, wheat or rice, for free. And this is 5 kg per month. So every month they would get, if there are 5 members in their household, they would get 5 into 5, 25 kgs. But not only that, he said, I would give additional 5 kg per person per month, totally free again. So what the Right to Food Act gave, which is 5 kg at 3 rupees or 2 rupees per person per kilo, was made free. And in addition, he gave the 5 kgs also free. So per person, 10 kg, totally free. And that scheme continues till today, and it shall continue till 2029. So just to ensure people don't suffer for want of basic cereal, and they at homes, they grind it and make chapatis, the roti, or the rice which is cooked, and so on. So that basic provision continues for food security. The other thing is, if a particular state feels that they will still need some more, from the grains which are collected, procured from farmers at a predetermined price and kept in the godowns of the central government, the state government at its expense can draw, and a concessional rate can draw rice or wheat or any other. There are about 18 items of food grains which are procured at a predetermined price given to the farmer. So the farmer is not cheated, farmer is not paid less than what he would have to get, and that is stored in the food corporation godowns. That is also available for states in case they want something. Pulses, coarse grains are all available for them. So food security is addressed through this. Water. Government of India under Prime Minister Modi runs a scheme called Jal Jeevan Mission. Jal Jeevan Mission. And what does that mean? It means tap water, drinkable water, potable water is taken to earlier. For decades, we used to provide tap connection to the village. So there could be one point in a village where everybody would go with pots or containers, fill up from that tap and take water home. It still meant coming a distance. But Jal Jeevan Mission has said that every house will get a tap and water. That is a major scheme of Government of India. Not only did we say that we'll build the toilets, which is almost near complete, 63 million people, if I know the number, no, 43 million people have been given toilet connection, new toilet built for them. Just like that, water connection goes to every house. So there is no need for anyone from the household to go to some point to collect water. So Jal Jeevan Mission for water. You also asked me about food, water, and one more.
And electricity.
electricity. So electricity in any case is provided now. I don't think there's any village left where connections have not gone. Households have received the connections. So if I remember the situation in 2014, there were still many villages in many parts of India, some even very close to the state capital, the provincial headquarters, without even a pole to receive the electric wires, leave alone then giving the connection to the houses. Now, all that has been overcome. Houses have got their electricity.
I greatly admire Prime Minister Modi's commitment for toileting facilities, especially in the countryside for women, especially.
Yes.
It's really quite noble for him to do that. But I look at the rivers in India. They're kind of dirty. How do we get sanitation in these big urban centers? They're just booming.
Oh yes, you spoke about the urban centers earlier. Now I'm able to link up. No, on the rivers, I'm happy these questions are being asked of Prime Minister Modi or his government or the central government. The states and their lands, meaning physically the lands are with the state. The river, the mountains, the paddy fields, or anything that you would imagine. The central government doesn't possess any land, except for those small union territories which are directly administered by the central government. So when you talk of rivers, that one big river which is very sacred for India, the Ganges, Ganga, passes through so many different provinces. Just look at the map. It starts with Uttarakhand, Uttar Pradesh, then it goes down further, touches Bihar, somewhat borders with northern Bihar, and then goes to Bengal, and then goes to the sea. One leg of it through the Yamuna gets connected from Madhya Pradesh, from southern Uttar Pradesh. Not so much. Bundelkhand has a bit of a river which Ben Kit Ken Betwa, which also gets. So the Gangetic belt alone passes through these many number of states. So a central government can say Ganga cleaning campaign, we want to at least have the sacred river of Ganga cleaned up. You have to have the permission, the cooperation, the assistance from these many states. And they are all not ruled, at least now, yes, they are ruled by the same party, but there are times in between that they were ruled by other parties as well. So the priority that it is being done for the river and the people and therefore the nation sometimes gets sacrificed when it is politicking. Oh, you're going to get the good name. I am not here to cooperate with you. So it remains where it is. So you can't clean up a river from the source down to some state, forget the middle, and then clean up somewhere else and claim that you cleaned the river as a whole. You can't. So there are issues when it comes to question of center and state working together, federal government and the provincial government to work together.
Thank you. India has some very good private financial services firms, but I'm told that the banking and insurance industry still has a pretty heavy government influence to it. Can you tell us about your thoughts on that, you and Prime Minister? How do you think about that? I mean, the private sector would love to do more banking and insurance in India. What are the prospects for that changing?
Nothing stops them from coming and doing business. There are actually a lot of private banks already in India, private insurance companies already in India, private insurance companies which are not Indian, which are already in India. So private banks which are not in India, Stan Chart, one of the biggest one, has more than 100 branches in India. So nothing stops them. And it's not a hasty thing saying, all right, you're saying that nothing stops them, but does it have a backing somewhere? Is it a policy? Is it written somewhere? Yes, it is written somewhere. 2021 budget under Prime Minister Modi clearly said there are only 4 areas in which government will also be present. There is no area in which private sector cannot come in. India has actually opened up every sector. That is why even in a sector which is very sensitive, defense production, a sector which is very sensitive, space. Today you have private operations. So there is no sector in India, and I'll be very proud to say this. India has suffered for, first of all, India has a lot of entrepreneurs. It's always had small, medium entrepreneurs, some large entrepreneurs. Even during a repressive colonial British rule, you had Indian large corporations somehow managing to survive and do business and grow. India has always been entrepreneurial, some big, some medium, some small. But I'm getting into a politically sensitive bit, but I will still say it. Much more than even during the British period. Because of the socialism that we had taken over, pretentiously, I would think, it doesn't suit the Indian temperament. And having taken it up, my God, the way in which we had controlled our businesses, regulated our businesses, license, quota, Raj, is a language that we use even to us. What is it? You give them license only if you like them, or you put 1,000 conditions to give them license. Quota. You can only produce this much and not beyond. I mean, come on, he's coming to produce. You want it all and more. And you want to tell him, no, you can only produce this much. Typical socialism. And the Raj, permit Raj. You will allow him or you will not. So the beautiful package of the socialism which appealed to everybody, oh my God, yes, we don't want profit-making big corporations. India ended up undermining its own capacities. And not till Prime Minister Modi could anyone say, in order to promote businesses, we'll invite businesses to India, we'll invite Indian businesses also to be bold and taking risk, and we will give them a red carpet. In fact, it was Prime Minister Modi who said, no red tape, but only red carpet for business, because we were full of corruption. And post 2014 until today, let me challenge anyone who's heard any word of corruption in the government. That is how transformational changes were brought in to remove that socialism, which did not do good to anyone. If per socialism you benefited the poor, I'm willing to stand up and say probably it was right. India's poverty elimination rate was so pathetic. So socialism didn't help them, but it helped some rent-seeking people that businesses didn't grow. So it took 2021 budget to use the word privatization without hesitation or batting an eyelid. What's wrong? 2021 budget said it, that we open up all sectors for private sector to come in. Government will be there in strategic important areas because a telecom company will not go to the borders to provide telephone connection. We need a government company to do it. So we will be there. We are not saying government will not be there at all, but it will be there in strategic sectors. So yes, we've opened it up for private. So banks, insurance, everybody is coming in. There's no hesitation.
Thank you. Back in July, you gave a speech about the need for stronger job creation. Would you share with us, both the reason you gave it and then what you think are the main channels for implementing this?
Yes, I did say that, and it is, I would recognize it as one of the important priority for the government. Skilling people, upskilling people, getting them ready for 21st century jobs, bringing AI-related skilling to the youth. This year's budget in July, which was the full budget for this year post the elections, we made it a point to come up with a package of 5 schemes, some to train, some to create jobs, where government will put the money. So for a private employer to bring in more employees, we shall bear his provident fund payments, both of the employer and employee, to skill people, to give them an exposure to top 500 companies. We've said we'll have an internship program where for 12 months, people who were found to be unemployable, I'm purposely bringing that language, who have been found not fit for employment, We are picking those people up voluntarily. If they would come onto the website and say, look, I am so-and-so, I live in this district, I'm only a 10th class pass, I've not found a job, I'm still going to have him be put into a company. For 12 months, he'll get an exposure to that company, not a random company, a company which is in the top 500 based on the net turnover and everything else, and give them 5,000 rupees per month. Give them the exposure. The company will give him the exposure to marketing or depending on his aptitude, not so much the skill set he has. So jobs are a particular concern for us, and we will certainly be doing all this. But I would think, going by the first question that you asked me, that seems to be the problem and the challenge for most countries with youthful population. Of course, there are countries whose population is dwindling. They are more senior citizens than young people. I'm not talking about them. We are now looking at a country whose under 30-year population makes up for 45% of our total population. We need to attend to them. So we are looking at jobs. We have identified different schemes. We are also giving them language training, those who are passing out of engineering colleges. We are opening up more training centers.
It's very impressive. We're coming to the end of the time, and so, but I do want to ask you, you're going to become the third largest economy in the world. You're certainly the dominant economy in Southeast Asia. You're surrounded by some countries that have some troubled economics. We've seen it this last year. How do you see, India's role as the integrator of an economic prosperity in the region?
We have, 2 or 3 different alignments where there is one for the Bay of Bengal rim countries. We call them BIMSTEC. It includes Thailand, Myanmar, Bangladesh, Nepal. There is one set of BIMSTEC countries with whom we have an understanding. We keep helping each other. Similarly, we have countries in the immediate neighborhood of India, for whom again we are continuously looking at the ways in which we can help them with their infrastructure needs, provide them electricity if they don't produce their own electricity. Whether it is Nepal or Bangladesh, we've had some understanding. With Nepal, we keep talking about many of the projects that we would love for their benefit, economic benefit, and also for us. Kosi is a river which floods North Bihar every year. And the flood is not something which you can, even for a country like India, which is used to periodic flooding, Kosi flooding is, it'll bring you tears when you see it every year. The quantum of disaster, assets being lost, livestock being lost, everything getting washed away. We would like to have some negotiations are going on with Nepal so that we at our cost would build the required, reservoir or a dam of holding the water back and releasing it in careful way so that Bihar doesn't get flooded. Similarly, for Sri Lanka, that they went through a crisis period. We've been supportive of them. And in fact, I'm very grateful that IMF formed the World Bank and the IMF formed the sovereign debt roundtable during India's presidency of the G20, addressed concerns of Sri Lanka, so they were able to assist them. Much before they came, we had given them the assistance. So we do take care of our neighborhood. Like the way I think during very critical times, even shiploads of drinking water was sent to, say, Maldives. They had a crisis. They didn't have drinking water. We sent it over. So there are several instances like that.
Thank you. Your ambassador sternly warned me that I need to get you out of here by 5:40, and we are right at that hour. I now understand why Prime Minister Modi asked you to be the finance minister, and I understand why 350 people came on Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock to listen to you. Would you all, with your warm applause, say thank you?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm really
Thank you
honored
very
that you
Those
were
that have
here.
the time and
Thank you
opportunity
for-
will have a reception just outside if you can stay around. Thank you. Oh, come on over here.